So good evening, everyone, and welcome to this last 2024 council meeting for the Township of West Lincoln. Today is Monday, December 16th, and this is meeting number 20. Please stand if you're able for the singing of O Canada, tonight presented by Smithville Christian High School. Oh, correction, Smithville Public School. It's one of our new ones, so.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see them rise, the true North strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you. So I will just say that one of the things that I wanted to do when I first became mayor was to have students singing O Canada. And so we put out a request to the schools and just got back from the two we've been rotating, Smithville Christian High School and Cairn Public School. But just a week and a half or so ago, we did get a thumb drive that had on the three local schools. So we now will have, as you heard tonight, Smithville Public School. We will also hear Caister and also Gainesville. So, but that's a surprise because that wasn't what was in the agenda, but it was very nice. So before commencing the council meeting, I'd like to provide the following announcements. The public may submit comments for matters that are on the agenda to jpaylove@westlincoln.ca before 4:30 on the day of the meeting. Comments submitted will be considered as public information and read into the public record. And secondly, this meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded and will be available on the township's website. So we'll begin our meeting as always with the land acknowledgement statement. The Township of West Lincoln, being part of Niagara Region, is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Wendourong, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Township of West Lincoln, as part of the Regional Municipality of Niagara, stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. And Councillor Bradrick, you have the opening petition tonight?
Yes, I do, Madam Mayor. We meet to serve our community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly, to make decisions that promote the common good. We recognize our responsibilities to the past and the future, and the rights and needs of both individuals and community. As trusted servants, may we act wisely and well.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any changes, members of council, on items on the agenda? Okay, seeing none. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and/or conflict of interest? And seeing none. That takes us to the request to address items on the agenda. And before we get to that, I actually have an invited guest in the gallery this evening. And so I'd like to just tell you what and why. So this was sent to my office, and I was quite impressed to hear this and thought about a good citizen in our community. Mr. Jeff Phillider called to say that on November 2nd, his stepson, Michael Bush, was driving and saw a fire on the northwest corner of Wade and Golden Acres. It was a leaf fire, and it was dry and windy, so it was rapidly progressing, approaching the large tree and the wooden fence. Michael immediately stopped, rushed out of his vehicle, and began stomping on the fire to try to put it out. A neighbor noticed what he was doing and brought out some water to help, and eventually he got the fire out. Without Michael's efforts, Jeff said he believed the fence and the tree would have burned, and the house could also have been at risk. So having heard that story, it was just after we did our citizen recognition, and I thought, this doesn't fit that category, but it certainly was worthy of being recognized. And so I did invite Michael to come this evening. So Michael, if you'll come up to the front, please. On inside our circle. And so this is a certificate of recognition awarded to Michael Bush in appreciation of your active community service. So thank you, Michael, for what you did.
If you turn it towards here. Perfect. That's great.
Did you get a picture? You okay?
Oh, I'm good.
You good? That's okay. Thank you. Thank you. So item 6 on our agenda is always the opportunity for members of the public to address items that are on the agenda. Other than the family of Michael, I don't see anybody else, but I will at least provide comments about that. Under 6.7, the comment is that there shall be no comments from the public permitted at council unless A, a specific appointment has been scheduled, or B, an item is included in the other business or communications or appointments section of the agenda and relates to a matter which would normally be dealt with at committee. So I'm going to ask, and I'll ask if there's anybody online as well, Kevin, if there are any members of the public present who wish to address a specific item on the agenda.
Not seeing any, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay. There are no appointments or presentations other than the one we've just had, and so that takes us to Regional Councillor Witteveen, and your remarks, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and Madam Mayor, members of council and public. Just a couple quick updates that I wanted to bring forward this evening. As some of you might know, that we now have a four-way stop at Park Road and Mud Street. So excited about that being achieved. It's been a bit of a process since the springtime doing background work on that, and just a step in community safety. And an item that came up to the mayor and myself on the intersection at Fulton, there was a motor vehicle collision there, and so the region has been monitoring traffic there. And I spoke with the director of transportation, Frank Tassone, and he did reassure me that it does warrant a signal, but they were going to look at other things, to try to slow the traffic down, and look at other alternatives versus and the signal. So if any constituents are wondering if there's any progress in that intersection, then you can reassure them that the region is working on it and just looking at the best alternative for that situation. And just the third thing I wanted to bring up was our West Lincoln Agriculture Society came to our planning meeting and presented for the International Plowing Match with their list of sponsorship and in-kind services. So the mayor and I did refer that back to staff to get some solid numbers. They were looking for some culverts and some policing, so we needed to kind of monetize those in-kind services. So that's all. I just and wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and keep it light this month, and hope you get time to spend with your family through this holiday time. So.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Any questions or comments? Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through to the regional councillor. To my, I guess I'd use the word horror last night on the 11 o'clock news. there was an announcement that the region had settled on a 9.6% budget. Is that true, sir?
Yes, that's true, Councillor Rayner.
Can I ask your position on that vote?
I supported it.
The question that I have to ask is why? The Bank of Canada has been reducing the interest rate to try to turn the economy around. There are more people than ever going to food banks. And the government's given us money back, both the federal and provincial, and according to the chair of the Budget Committee, which is the mayor, I think, of Fort Erie or something, he basically said the amount of money that it's going to cost the taxpayers means that basically this money they got from the government is just going back out to another government. Is there a reason why in this times when people are having a struggle, even to pay their groceries bills, not to mention anything else, that the region would come up with such an astronomical number when everybody else is trying to cut down because they realize the crisis that the country is in right now? I don't really understand the logic behind that. There should have been an understanding that we're hurting, and if there any is a time to tighten down, it should be now. Could you possibly comment on that for me, please?
Through you, Madam Mayor, and to Councillor Rayner, maybe I can help you understand the process and the position that we are in the budget. The Mayor and I have been at this and the Council since early October, so it's been quite a lengthy process, and we've, I would say, vetted the budget quite well. To help you understand, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Rayner, 92% of the services that the region provides are mandated by the province. So we are experiencing, obviously, inflation pressure on that 92%, but half of the increase of that 9.6 was actually the policing budget, which was, it actually came in at 5% of the levy, and the rationale behind that is that originally the police requested a 9.2% increase, and then they presented, and starting April 1st, 2024, the province has legislated the police a community safety and compliance program, which cost us an additional $10.2 million to administer from the province, which then added a cost and made the police budget a 13% increase. We asked the police to go back and sharpen their pencil, and to no avail. There was no give and take. So when you realize out of the 9.66%, 5% is requested by the police. So I believe that that myself, and I wouldn't want to speak on behalf of the mayor, that we felt that we were, without the police component, then you can do the math, I'm sure, Councillor Rayner, we felt that that was a very reasonable request in the budget to move forward with. So I hope that helps you understand the position that we're in.
I understand the 92%. As far as through you, Madam Chair, with regards to the policing, I don't think it affects West Lincoln whatsoever. We're still just getting 2 cruisers. So what West Lincoln is doing basically is paying for the police services for the other 11 municipalities, because I don't think there's any change to our services. So it really hits hard to the taxpayers here. And as the taxpayers here, a lot of them are on fixed incomes. They certainly don't get 9.6% added cost of living to their CPP or to their old age. So this is really going to hurt. And it's also seriously going to affect budget time for the township, because it is a blended one, because 56% of our tax dollars goes to the region. Percentage lower than that, I think it's 24 or something, comes to us, and the rest goes to the Board of Education. But that doesn't leave us a lot of manipulating ability to get our budget down to a reasonable level, because of the fact it's already been basically blown by the region, and we've got to come in under what we really want if we want to have a final number that the taxpayers in this township would be willing to accept. So it's really put the pressure on this municipality to go further on tightening their screws when it appears, for the perception of the public, the region certainly didn't do their share. This is just a bad time in a bad economy to come up with a wicked number. I understand your logic behind it, but no matter how you look at it, Councillor Witteveen, it's 9.6%, which is hundreds of dollars added to taxes to people right now that are struggling. The timing couldn't be worse. That's all I have
Thank
to
you,
say.
Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To the regional councillor, well, I don't think you expected to be grilled on the item-by-item comment there. I get where the councillor's coming from. I think we're all feeling the pinch, and so we appreciate that it couldn't have been an easy budget to tackle by any means, considering the policing component. But if I could express some concern around even the policing component. You know, not too long ago, we were promised the 44 new police officers. That was an unprecedented amount of hiring that was going to help us deal with some of those issues we all experienced locally here, and we actually never saw anything in return. So I think, to the councillor's credit there, I think the concern is, you know, what is West Lincoln going to see in return, and we hope that you guys will continue to be strong advocates for our community. But the question I have, Madam Mayor, to you, to either yourself or the councillor, when I look at some of the general highlights here, I see, you know, 1.5 million to support additional ambulances, 1.3 to support homeless shelters, and 700,000 to support investments to stabilize Niagara region housing stock. When I see that, I kind of don't know what that's saying. To me, it kind of sounds like, how are you guys, where is that 700,000 actually being invested, and how is it going to have an impact on housing throughout Niagara? Or is this an isolated thing where it's specific pockets of Niagara?
So, I mean, it is very much so more in the larger communities, of course.
Okay.
But we also have some regional housing here, whether, I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but there is supportive housing in Villa 1 and Villa 2
Yes.
that are under the auspices of the region.
And they'll see some of
And
this?
some others. So all of that. What essentially the issue is, and I don't sit on public health and social servicing, but the issue is the fact that there are encampments everywhere, as you know from the newspapers that you've been reading.
Yes.
And so in order to move those people into something, then the region is doing its best in conjunction with mainly the 4 larger cities, to try to move those people into some sort of shelter, which moves some of the people who are in the shelters into the next level of supportive housing. But the wait list now is, I think, about 8 years, and it's just an impossible situation. So the other thing that they're also sort of looking at is what to do about student housing, for example. So there is a strategy in place that they're looking, although the lead is not on the part of the region, they are certainly working with the university and colleges to look at, okay, if there is an opportunity to build some specifically related housing for students, that would free up some of the rental housing and some of this, you know, so that it's a domino thing. It's all the way
has a
through.
ripple effect.
Quite honestly, I mean, I'm going to address a little bit in my remarks as well about the budget, because there's no doubt that it's not pleasant. But there is so little that actually is within the control of the region. And so I will address that in a little while. The numbers are mind-boggling. You're talking about $1 billion, you know, budgets, and the talk of millions is like we talk of thousands. And but when you're there, when you're at regional council, you are expected to be looking at, you know, yes, you're looking after your own municipality, but you're actually looking after the region as a whole, because that, of course, is, oops, I've lost my describe. There we go. That, of course, is what the hat you're supposed to be wearing as you sit there as well. It's looking at what's best for the region. I mean, Albert and I sit side by side. It is, we vote in block many times with our smaller municipalities all the way around. But the needs of the cities are huge. That doesn't mean that some of the needs that they are facing are not also ours, because our people who are in that severe need gravitate to the larger cities because that's where the services are. So some of those people that they're working with are former West Lincoln people or former Grimsby people or former Lincoln people. I mean, that's what happens if you're in need of the kinds of services that are provided by social services and public health. You need to be where those services are. So, you know, we're sort of one for all and all for one in terms of trying to deal with some of these issues. But if you have any further questions that Albert wants to respond to,
Sure. So
and I'll come back to it with mine. Okay?
Appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So one other follow-up question to you, Madam Mayor, to our regional councillor would have been, so when I look up here, I see that's approximately $191 per household over what assessment? So right now, it's about $200 a year, almost just shy of $16 a month per individual, just dealing with this side. Is that based on, I'm just trying to understand like the average value of which house, so meaning, is this $400,000 a home, it's value?
Close to about 300,000.
300,000, so
On
anybody
the
who has. 2016
assessment.
So this is where it gets even more interesting, because again, as we understand, the percentage doesn't always tell the whole story. You gotta know the value, how it's being impacted. So say someone has a house that's worth $600,000, they're actually paying double that, right? And so this is where it gets into.
Yeah, so if I could just interrupt, it's double that if your assessment
Correct.
has doubled, right?
Yes,
So if your
correct.
assessment was 300,000 or thereabouts.
Then you're paying that, and if it's
that's
under,
what
you'd
it
pay
is.
less.
And the fact that it's 2016 is not helping anybody.
No.
The other thing that we have to remember, and I'll come back to let Albert answer, is that amount is what's on the regional portion, and then our amount is what is on our portion,
local
right? So
portion, yeah.
that's the issue of the blended rate. It's not they're added together.
No,
It
this
isn't like
is
one
why I'm
plus the
using the
other
$200
equals, right?
number. I think it's 191. It put here, but that's where, when we figure out what the blended is, it's only going to be a little bit more on the overall. But again, speaking specifically to understanding what the assessment was, that number comes to, because 10% can be anything, as well as understanding the impact of local businesses, small businesses, the backbone of our community. They're going to pay 2% of that, right? So they are already starting off double. Never mind the valuation and all the other calculations that go into it. So again. It's a bigger issue that I don't know how we steer through, but let the regional councillor speak to the question I asked there, so he has a chance to speak to it. But that's more what I was trying to seek, is a clearer understanding of what the actual impact is.
So,
Just
Councillor
a quick
Whittington.
comment through you, Madam Mayor. I think we also, you'll be sitting there and you say, well, if we want a zero budget, what services would you like us to cut?
Yeah.
And it's very challenging when our 92% is mandated by the province because we are providing the service. But just to keep it in context, and you will deal with this, so I think there's a similarity. We have a new hospital, and we're putting our taxpayers' dollars from the region as well as local municipality towards our new build of a hospital and our hospice, which are really not our mandate, and so it's kind of viewed as a discretionary, and so there's that to me is I wholly and fully support it because it adds to the quality of our community, and these are the decisions that we all make, and so when we say if we're going to pull our horns back in and look at a much lower rate, we have to really say, what is it that we do not want to provide to the people? And I think it becomes very challenging when there's an expectation of the services that we provide. And then some of those costs that we are not in control of the increase of those costs, as Councillor Rayner talked about CPI. CPI is an interesting number. It doesn't always reflect the truth on the ground. When I say it's 3%, when we go to the grocery store, we know it's not 3%. We know it's more like 7%. So I don't want to, and I've had a number of calls, and I've been dealing with these calls all weekend. We have to look at this very realistic. So we can argue numbers that are not real, or we can argue with numbers that are real. And we know, because we pay, we know what those numbers are. So that's how I view it. I think minus the police, I believe we were being very responsible, because I believe that 5% is probably the inflation number. And that's why I was satisfied with moving this budget forward, and then to proceed to lobby the province for the shortfall that they've mandated to us. And it's a very frustrating position when you have to provide services. It's mandated and there's no funding attached. So then we have to go back and say, and look for that equity. So there's work happening behind the scenes on the, we'll call it funding formulas, from from municipalities or from the province to municipalities. And at AIM, I believe it's at FCM also, that conversation. So there is work happening behind the scenes. This is not just throw up our hands and say, well, this is the way it's going to be. But we need to move forward with the strategy and also continue to work at fixing that funding formula, which is the province wants us to do this. They need to fund it. They can't leave the municipalities to make up that shortfall. So that's all I have to say, Madam Mayor, to that, and I hope that answers.
It does, and I completely appreciate that explanation. And just for clarity, like I certainly would never expect a 0% budget, just because I think at that point you're actually going backwards. So, you know, you mentioned that that's unrealistic. You know, we've got to make sure we're doing things fiscally responsible, and I certainly don't envy the situations you guys were in, but these
So-
are the times we're in, so.
Thank you. So further to that, too, Albert made me think that I didn't include in my remarks, even though I thought about it way back. I was trying to keep them shorter. But, so attached to the acceptance of the, reluctant acceptance of the police budget, the police chief actually did take, we actually shaved another percent down the other night, because the police chief went against his board. The board voted 3-2 to hold the line and not take anything back, even though we sent it back to them. But he offered up, I think it was like $892,000, where he thought by offsetting hiring later on and a few other things, he could save a little bit now in terms of the budget. And we did vote, of course, on that, to accept that. But with that acceptance of the budget, went the caveat, and part of the resolution was that the province would be, we'd go back to the province again to try to get that lost money. And you may have seen in the paper that the OPP, the municipalities that have OPP, actually were doing the same thing, and have been sending letters after letters that you referred to, actually, when you were talking to Councillor Rayner about in our councillor information package. There often are resolutions from various municipalities asking for support of things. And they did actually get the government to move. And those municipalities that are dependent upon OPP did have money given back to them. I don't know how much. I don't know if it was fully reimbursed. But we are also in the process of trying, with our own forces, as are the other municipalities that have their own police forces, trying to get money back as well to help cover that. So it's not a dead end, but it's not good, for sure. We're certainly not defending the region's budget at all. Councillor Chichok, I saw your hand.
Just quickly, Madam Mayor, an article that I was reading late last night as well talked about the need to scrutinize costs within budgets for municipalities, whether it's single tier or two tier, and that is for operational costs that are directly attributable to the period, to this year, next year, or the following year. Municipalities do have to eat the whole chunk, because if they put it off, you're only putting off operations costs that happen every year. But when we look at major capital infrastructure, much like this municipality did when we built the recreation center, there was a larger than our current population could support cost that we could attribute to development charges and or future years. So we paid for that over a period of time with borrowed money. It may sound like a silly thing to do, but the money was cheaper then because interest rates went up. But we were actually moving it on to the future generations of people who will move here from other municipalities. And the article was talking not about West Lincoln, I can assure you. Somewhere they probably thought we were a pimple on the map, but it was more of a Canada-wide looking thing. But it was talking about doing that exact thing when there are costs attributable either to capital or expansions of various things. They were suggesting that scrutiny is going to have to really be given to put the appropriate share to this year's taxpayers and to somehow augment and put it out for future well, not in our case. We're supposed to start growth probably in about 5 years or so. And when that number starts to change, we should be putting that cost towards that time period. Anyway, I would not have wanted to be in your shoes either, Councillor Woodavine, or yours. I know how hard the entire of Regional Council worked, so I thank you for your hard work.
Anything, Councillor Maychak?
Yeah, just a quick one for just my understanding. In terms of the police budget and what the police chief presented, do you see any enhancement or increased policing within that budget, or just the status quo based on inflation?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Maychak. It's we have an interesting police force here in Niagara, and I just wanted to enlighten you on a few stats, so bear with me, I'll be as quick as I can. So we have 4 international border crossings. We have 12 unique communities. We have 1,500 square kilometers of waterways. We have 29,500 post-secondary students. We have a population of 532, and we get 13 million visitors annually. Calls of service are 140,000. So the type of, to answer your question, Councillor, is the type of policing is changing. The street beat policeman is not there. So when Councillor Rayner says we don't see any more police cars, so we're dealing with 13,000 plus or minus mental health calls, 6,000 plus or minus domestic calls, about a dozen homicides, and about 990 armed barricades. So that's where a lot of our policing is, and one thing that I found very interesting and enlightening from the chief was that's just addressing the call. Then they have to do the paperwork after, which actually made me understand the workload. So on a domestic violence, they could be spending 20 to 30 hours doing paperwork and follow-up on that. An armed barricade or a homicide could be a week's worth of police officer work. So these are the things that are happening behind the scenes, and then there's the whole cyber crime, cyber human trafficking, all the really, I call it the sad part of society that they're dealing with. So when it becomes, you ask for enhanced service, I think they're just trying to provide a quality and a level of service, and it's just taking more resources over time. And that was what I took away from our police chief, and I sit here and the presenter's there, so I was hanging on all his words, and I believe that I heard him properly. So I hope that does answer your question, and it's policing is probably a very hard career these days because of all the changes in society and the demands that are on them. So thank you.
So Albert took accurate notes. I have my stack of notes as well, but I think that there was an indication that they were also adding to the force. So hopefully, at one point in time, I caught the ear of the fact that they were looking, and we might end up, who knows, with another additional officer out this way, because some of the problems from elsewhere are creeping our way, of course, and so they are trying to be on top of that. So anyway, anything further?
Thank you.
Councilor Rayner.
Thank you. Just further comment to Regional Councillor Albert Witteveen's comment with regards to the police force. This mandate by the Premier that we have with regards to increasing the massive size of housing in the region of Niagara, increasing housing does not reduce policing. It increases policing. So you can imagine what the situation is now and the projected numbers that they want to do in the next 20 years. I don't think anybody can afford to live in a house by the time they do the police budget then, because the more people you get, the more trouble you get, the more costs it gets. This is going to go out of control. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Witteveen. So that will take us then to confirmation of minutes, council minutes of November 25th, 2024. Councillor Riley, you have that resolution, please?
I do, Madam Mayor. Moved by myself that the minutes relating to the November 25th, 2024 council meeting and the recommendations contained therein be accepted, and that the confidential minutes related to the closed session portion of the November 25th, 2024 council meeting be accepted, and that those minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with exemptions provided in section 239 of the Municipal Act.
Thank you. And someone to second? Councillor Chichok, thank you. Any questions or comments about the open portion of those minutes? Okay, so Mr. Clerk. Did everybody get the vote? I did. Mike, did it come to you? Good, thank you. Okay, good. So that resolution carries. 9.2 are the all-committee meeting, including public meetings, the minutes of December 9th, 2024. And Councillor Bradrick, you have that resolution, please?
Yes, I do. Moved by myself that the minutes of the December 9th, 2024, all committees, including public meeting be accepted and the recommendations contained therein be approved.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Trombetta, thank you. Are there any questions or comments about those minutes? All right, seeing none, the vote's in front of you. And that also carries. 9.3 is a public meeting under the Planning Act, and Councillor Chichok, you have those, please?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Moved by myself that the minutes relating to the December 9th, 2024, all committees, including public meetings and recommendations contained therein be accepted.
Thank you. And someone to second that? Councillor Bradrick, thank you. Are there any questions or comments about that public meeting? Okay, so the vote will be in front of you. Okay, and that also carries. Item 10 is communications, and 10.1 is Ernie Sibbett, the Chair of the Crime Stoppers of Niagara. Read January 2025 Crime Stoppers Month. And so, Councillor Trombetta, would you read that, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Moved by myself that Ernie Sibbett, Chair of Crime Stoppers of Niagara, January 2025 Crime Stoppers Month. Moved by myself that the correspondence received by Ernie Sibbett, Chair, Crime Stoppers of Niagara, regarding January 2025 Crime Stoppers Month, dated December 6th, be received for information.
Thank you. So, someone to second that, please. Councillor Riley. So I'd just like to make the comment that Ernie also asks, as many do, for proclamations, but it's the policy of our municipality not to do proclamations, so we are just putting the flag up, so that you're aware of that. Okay, and so when we're ready, thank you. And item 10.2, after that carries, is the West Lincoln Age-Friendly Advisory Committee minutes of November 1st, 2024. And Councillor Maychak, you have that resolution?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Moved by myself that the West Lincoln Age-Friendly Advisory Committee minutes dated November 1st, 2024 be received.
Is there any seconder for that, please? Councillor Riley? Probably aren't any questions about that, other than you know that if you looked at them, that we have 3 separate things that we're doing this year. A small scale, a middle scale, and then our big project we're saving until September rather than June, so that we can capitalize on some funding opportunities. So the vote's in front of you. And that also carries. Thank you. Okay, so my remarks this evening are a bit of a hodgepodge. A little bit about just generally winding the year down, and a little bit about the things that have happened in the last couple of weeks, and a little bit about the budget. So, since the beginning of December, I've had the pleasure of raising the Positive Living Niagara flag. I've attended the Chamber of Commerce Holly Jolly Business event at Beautiful Breathe Massage located in the plaza in Smithville. Attended the Creekside Market Mingle Jingle, and have assisted West Lincoln Community Care with their Christmas store, designed for their clients to be able to choose gifts for themselves and each of their family members. Friday morning, as members of council are aware, our council chambers was visited by P.A. Pincinot from the Ministry of Rural Affairs, our own MPP Sam Osterhoff, and a couple of their staff members who announced an increase to our Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund allocation that will be a welcome addition to our 2025 budget. The Niagara Regional Budget was reluctantly passed last Thursday evening. Budget meetings began, now Albert said in October, but I actually began in July with some pre-budget training sessions, and I've attended all of those, and they've proceeded almost weekly since that time. What began as an increase proposed to be close to 13% was, after months of discussion, whittled down to a still very ugly 9.6%. At the region, it's not a matter of voting on an increase in one major vote, but rather each section is broken out and is voted on separately. Councillor Witteveen and I supported every possible amendment that was put forward, supporting a decreased amount in each area. We voted in favor of things such as an increased EMS service, an increased police presence in the region, including our own NRPS Division 8, as we recognize those items as being important to West Lincoln residents. We also supported the capital budget as it included projects in West Lincoln, including the Casterville Road upgrade from the boundary with Haldeman to Concession 1, an intersection improvement at Regional Road 24 and Regional Road 63, which many of our residents use, and also some funds being added to and allocated to our wastewater and water needs. It's also important to note that Niagara Region is a service delivery entity, but of the total, and Albert used percentages, I'm going to use dollars, but of the total $483 million allocated for the delivery of services, only $26 million is allocated to non-mandatory services. Of that non-mandatory portion, such things as the region's portion of the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital build that comes due this year and money into reserves for the new South Niagara Hospital build are included. We're now past, and that's the end, that's all I'm saying about budget, since I interspersed some other things. We're now past the halfway mark of our council mandate to represent the residents of West Lincoln for the 2022 to 2026 term. Although we've had a very busy 2 years, the next 2 should prove to be even more busy as we begin to see some infrastructure and housing starts begin to take place in our community. We still have close to 2 full years of important work to do in and for our community, and I know that we are all up for the job. I'd like to take this time to thank the members of council for their work during 2024, both in our local municipality and also representing West Lincoln on the various local and regional committees on which each of you currently sit. By your presence, you provide either a West Lincoln voice during issues being discussed at a regional level or a council perspective on local issues. I'm pleased to inform council and the public that Councillor Maychak has agreed to be the council liaison to the West Lincoln Age Friendly Advisory Committee and has already attended, if you read the minutes, his first meeting, so you know that. At our 22 to 24 committee chairs, as they stated as each completed their last meetings, a rotation of chairs and vice chairs, and our new committee structure will begin in January. I most sincerely thank the past committee chairs for the leadership that they have each demonstrated during their respective committee meetings. Before closing my remarks, I'd like to point out once again the numerous examples found, mainly on social media, but also in our 2 local newspapers, of the extreme generosity of our community. Local churches, organizations, businesses, both large and small, and individuals have all stepped up to help those who are most in need, not only during the Christmas season, but throughout the year. I feel privileged to live in and also represent such a warm, caring, and generous community. I also want to remind council that our community New Year's levy is also fast approaching. It will take place on January 4th from 2 to 4. That's the last Saturday before everything's back to normal. There will be free public skating, hot chocolate and coffee, and also Oli Bowlin, Greek pastries, and Timbits, as for last year. As you run into residents over the next couple of weeks, please be sure to invite them out to take part in this free event. It will be a great way to meet and greet informally and to wish each other well for the upcoming year ahead. And finally, I'd like to take this public opportunity to wish my colleagues on council, all members of staff, and the residents of West Lincoln all the blessings of the season and a very happy and healthy new year. And that ends my remarks for this evening. And that takes us to reports of committee, and there are none. There's not a reconsideration tonight. There's no notice of motion to rescind. And that takes us to other business. So I'm going to start. Councillor Maychak, is there anything you want? Oh, wait a minute. First of all, we've got Donna's. So this is just a report to you. There's not a motion or a resolution that's coming out of it. We have a bylaw in place, but it will be new for Greg perhaps, but for members of council, you know that at this time, when that first tax bill goes out, it is half, of what last year's was. And so that's just Donna's note to us. The details are in her report, and if you haven't looked at them already, please do so, in case a resident asks you about that tax bill. The difficulty with that, in my mind, is that residents hear that there's going to be an increase, and then they don't see an increase on their first tax bill because it's based on last year, and then they suddenly see it the next time around, and it all comes around again. So just be prepared with that answer that this first one is always based on just last year. Well, nothing, it seems, goes down. Okay, so now I'll go to members of council and your council remarks, and I'm going to start with Councillor Maychak. Is there anything you'd like to say this evening?
I just want to echo your comments from earlier, how generous this community is. I had the privilege last Friday to help with the food drive, and just the number of people that gave, both of their time and their generosity was incredibly impressive. I also want to thank both the staff and my colleagues here for welcoming me over this last month and the transition into this new role. I really appreciate all your help and guidance and support. It's meant a great deal to me, especially starting something new. And I also want to thank you, Madam Mayor, for your support and guidance during this time of change for me from being retired and back working in a municipality, which I'm really looking forward to entering next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Bradrick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess just in the spirit of the season, I, would like to urge everyone to consider the well-beings and the needs of all members of our community, particularly those that are struggling during this time. And also to take a moment to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of community members, local businesses, and township staff as we, continue to create such a wonderful, warm, and welcoming community to all. And and happy Kwanzaa, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, and whatever other celebrations that people are enjoying this time of the year.
Thank you.
Dolly was already.
Councillor Trombetta.
I just wanted to say on, day was it now? On Wednesday, was it? We had our NPI strategic planning?
Thursday.
Thursday.
Thursday, December
Sorry,
the 12th.
this time
my
is just
dreaded
flying
day.
and by quickly.
So busy.
We're getting quick to even Christmas, and it's just, so we we had a meeting starting at 4:00, myself, mayor, members from the MPI board were there as well. It was an informative meeting with the consulting firm that was there, and Bearless was there as well. There's talk always in the public about, hydro, shares, merging, all that. And I did ask the question that evening, to the president of the board. None of this is, that talk is just out there. None of it is set in stone. It's just always for education purposes if it ever comes up in the future. So I always want residents to know that that is not the case. There's no merging or selling or dwindling of any shares by any means, speaking with the consultants and the president of the board. When they do these strategic planning meetings, again, it's just for education purposes for board members. So it was an informative meeting. It lasted a while. Then we went into our Penn West meeting. Madam Mayor, I know you had regional commitments that evening.
Well, you've heard about those, sir.
Which I did hear about those in your report.
Very busy.
That went well also. That was Brian Walker's final meeting. He was on that board for approximately 30-plus years as president for that board, and 38 years on that board. So I am officially moving into that role starting in January, and with new board members that we're welcoming is Councillor Bradrick and Councillor Riley on that board as of January. Also to my members of committee around the horseshoe here, it has been our midpoint. It's been good 2 years of productive, and I think, if we leave the politicking out, we can move a lot of things forward for this community, which we were elected to do. And so at that point, I'd like to wish you all a Merry Christmas to you and your families. This time is always a good time to reflect on being, with the ones we love, because you never know when it's going to be our last. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, so I started on the outside. I'll start on the outside. Councillor Rayner.
Mayor, further to Councillor Trombetta's discussion of last Thursday's meeting with NPEI, there was a presentation going over a lot of the things that NPEI does, what they contribute, the charities they belong to, and other things they do besides providing hydro. But they only dirk a very small area of Fenwick. They look after all of Lincoln and West Lincoln, but a small area of that, and of course all of Niagara Falls. And there was a study done on it, and just to let the people know, they are very conscientious of their billing and their costs. And basically NPEI on their study is 37% cheaper on their billing than Hydro One to the people who are in the Hydro One area. And there's a number of people in Fonthill get very upset with it apparently, because the councillors from Fonthill that sit on there bring it to their attention that their neighbor across the road pays a lot more for their hydro than we do. So it is interesting to note that there is quite a dramatic difference between one service unit and another one. And that was part of the presentation. The other thing was I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. If you're from England, as my wife is, it's Happy Christmas, as I guess John Lennon had in one of his songs. So it depends what part of the country you're from, but I wish everybody the best and look forward. And I would say, as the longest-running councillor that's sitting on this council chambers, I would have to say that this is probably the most productive 2 years that I've had the privilege and honor of sitting with, that we've accomplished over the many years going back to 2003. So I'm very much looking forward to the next 2 years. And I think this council has certainly gone a long ways in a short period of time. And I've been very impressed and pleased with our progress. So to everybody, thank you. It's a pleasure working with you. I think we are getting things done. I know positively we're getting things done that we never got done before. And we're certainly moving in the best interest of the people who elect us. And that's what we're here for. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chichok.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. And echoing the comments of those that have spoken before me, would put most of mine in place. But I would want to add my own sincere best wishes to all the people of West Lincoln, to our staff who've worked so hard, and to my council colleagues who've put an effort into making our council productive. And so to all of our community, not because I don't know the British language to that extent, I'll say Noleg Shona because I spent a bit of time in Ireland this year and learned those two words. But Bono Natale, Feliz Navidad, Wesoły Świąt, and to our friends of the Jewish faith, Hag Shema. So, in other words, Merry Christmas to all. And may you all have time to spend with family, to enjoy customs, and actually just fun with each other, and come back together to celebrate a happy and healthy new year. Thank you.
And Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Wow, I get to follow all that up. My goodness. Yeah, I guess just to echo what already has been said, I wish everyone here and physically here, who's watching us at home, those who might not be watching us but hearing about it later in the news, however, Merry Christmas. I wish you all a safe and happy holiday, and hope you enjoy the season and enjoy, family. Family's precious. Time comes and goes before we realize it. I know as a father of four, my oldest, I look at my oldest and look at my youngest, and I just wonder where the years are. And it's like a blessing and a curse at the same time, because you see one that's a teenager and the other one's just finally learned how to walk and do other things. So anyways, I think that's a wonderful way of recognizing where we are as a community, and hopefully we can keep going. The other thing I'll mention, I had a conversation today with the clerk's department in terms of just kind of putting some stuff on the horizon there as we embrace the new year. There's lots of business still left to take care of. We're a little bit past the halfway mark, and so as I find this term, as we go further into it, there's things we learn that we didn't necessarily know about before. And so one of the things is more of a notice to motion that will come in the new year there, but ensuring that we're doing our due diligence. Back in September, I'd heard some concerns or some comments and questions from residents that I think this is a time to kind of look at that as we get closer to the election. We're 2 years out. And so my notice to motion next month will be a resolution that will come before council to discuss an understanding that a request to our Integrity Commission to kind of review our corporate policy, ensure that council and our members are, we're holding ourselves accountable. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing, how we conduct ourselves in the public. But most importantly, some of the things I had was a question from members of the public regarding council's role when we have like community events, corporately run, on corporate property, and how that role looks in terms of somebody who might be a vendor. So I'm going to bring that forward to have the Integrity Commissioner actually review, and that will come in January. So this is just your notice to motion. There's nothing to put on the table tonight, but just as a full transparency, I think it's a great step forward to have that fully out there and fair and even process there. And I look forward to actually, anybody has questions, you can ask me about it afterwards. But I look forward to kind of getting to the bottom of that and proceeding next 2 years. We got 2 more years left. I'd like to see where we go with this, and then figure out where the future lies for the rest of us. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So. I don't know where we are at this point now. Maybe our CEO does, or perhaps our clerk does. But I know that with the election of a new councillor, and the fact that we have a brand-new integrity commissioner and a new lawyer, there was talk that we were trying to put something together in January, February.
perfect.
Outside of budget, like, so it'll be January or March, probably, as opposed to February, in terms of actually having a presentation to our council.
That'd be great.
So that might be the answer, or it might not be, I don't know. But
I think it can be coupled with it
Just so
very
that
well.
you're aware that has been
The-
planned since the election. So-
That's great, because I wasn't aware of that. But the questions that have come to me, the public, I think, would help there as well. But I also think in terms of having some transparency, I think there's going to want to be a clear understanding of what that looks like. And like I said, I'll address it more fulsome when we get into the table on the motion there. But for right now, I just wanted to kind of give you guys a heads up.
Thank you. So there are no new items of business, so we do have a little bit of confidential that we need to do. I needed somebody to, did you want to speak? Did you want to speak? I forgot. I'm so sorry. Would you like an opportunity to say something, either of you? Okay. Our CAO is going to weigh in here. Nothing to do, just an opportunity to speak at the end.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Nothing more than Merry Christmas. It's been a really wonderful 5 months starting here, and thank you, Council Administration, for making me feel so welcome. I look forward to being of service again in 2025. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Nothing from our clerk. Okay, so.
Is he back? Well, he's going to be back to, I think Jessica's back.
Jessica, 1st of March, I think. Yeah, 1st of March, I think. Yeah.
Thank you for your help for this.
We will have an opportunity. He's got to get through some more meetings, so anyway. All right, so we do have a resolution that's there on your screen. I need somebody to move it and read it, please, to take us into closed. Okay. Nope, we're going to close first. Close first. Okay.
Moved by myself that the next portion of this meeting be closed to the public to consideration the following pursuant to this section 239-2 of the Municipal Act Municipal Act 2001, 17.1, Director of Legislative Services Clerk Justin Paylove, citizen appointments on board and committees. 1, Age-Friendly Advisory Committee. 2, Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee. Note that all personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal local boards. Is there another one?
No, that's it.
it.
Thank you. All right, and somebody to second that, please. Councilor Riley. Okay. And the vote should be in front of you to go into closed session. This should be relatively short. Okay, so that takes us into closed session. Thank you, Albert.
Merry Christmas, Albert.
Merry Christmas to Liz as well.
Okay, well, we're back in open session after a very short confidential session. So we now are at bylaw. Oh, no, first of all, we need to confirm that, do we not, Mr. Clerk? Thank you. So you didn't even have time to prepare that. So essentially, the confidential session was appointing members to various committees, both the Age-Friendly Advisory Committee, as you see in the agenda, and the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee.
Through the mayor to the rest of council, I'll read the resolution. I'll need a mover and seconder after. That staff be directed to proceed as directed in closed session in relation to confidential item 17.1.
Okay, and Councillor Trombetta, you'll move that, and let's go to the other side. Councillor Rayner, will you second that? Okay. Are you doing this vote, or do you want a hand vote? Okay, it's on your screen. Okay, come on. Okay, so that takes us then to bylaws. And again, I will need a mover, Councillor Bradrick, thank you, and a seconder for bylaws, Councillor Riley. And we'll ask Councillor Bradrick to move the resolution, please.
Moved by myself that leave be granted to introduce bylaws 2024-82, 2024-83, 2024-84, 2024-85, 2024-86, 2024-87, 2024-88, and 2024-89, and that the same shall be considered to have been read a first, second, and third time with one reading and are hereby adopted, and 2, that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and affix the corporate seal thereto, any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So is everyone fine with the entirety of that? Councillor?
Vote to please,
I'll quote.
2024-84 and 86.
84. And 86. Okay, so we will vote on the remainder. Okay. Okay, so the vote on the remainder. Okay. Councillor Chichok, did you vote on the remainder?
Oh, it just came up. I'm doing
Oh.
it right now.
Okay. Okay, so those are fine, and we're looking now at 18.3, which is bylaw 2024-84, a bylaw to delegate powers and duties to officers, employees, and agents of the corporation of the Township of West Lincoln. And Councillor Rayner, you wanted that pulled. Did you want to speak to that?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Can I speak to it now?
Mm-hmm.
Through to the clerk, I believe this was a discussion we had last week in committee. This is what you've done so far. This was just relating to the CAO, correct? Okay, so there's one I want to discuss that I'm not sure of, comfortable with, whatever you want to say. And it says, authority to make any expenditures or incur liability which exceeds $50,000 that was not included in the most recent budget adopted by council before nomination day in the election. It says which exceeds 50,000, but there's no cap on it. So that means that if it wasn't included in the recent budget and something came up and it was a $3 or $4 or $5 million item without going to council, the CAO can approve it? That's only my concern. That's why, because it said exceeds 50,000, but it didn't say and limited to, 200,000 or something.
Okay, the clerk's busy searching. Just
Through the mayor to the rest of council and to Councilor Rayner, this was seen as pretty standard language that was already provided to the CAO through his regular job duties. There's obviously checks and balances that go through this, obviously through the Director of Finance. I believe this one is also governed by the fact that they can't go above a certain expenditure like the capital project one as well.
Excuse me, they can't go above what?
They can go above a certain amount. I know what you're suggesting. I don't know the actual hardline cap. I would have to look at a separate document, but this one is just expressing over 50,000, which was already standard for the CAO position already. Again, these are just written down officially in the bylaw. These were already afforded to in the powers for the CAO.
Well, Madam Mayor, I thought through to the clerk, as we discuss this, this looks open-ended to me. You're going through this to tighten things up and make things clear, and you just mentioned that there was a cap. There is a number, you just don't recall what it was. Isn't it important that we have that number, and since we are reviewing this and updating it, that that is put in there to make sure that there's a clear understanding of where the limitations are?
Through the mayor to the rest of council and Councilor Rayner, that is a good point. We can take that into account as we move forward. If you would like, we could, refer this back for more information. However, again, it was already afforded to the CAO through his position. This is just writing it down into a bylaw format.
Thank you. If I'm not mistaken, Madam Mayor, I think it was a while ago, I think it was in this term, or was it last term, that we upped the amount that the CAO could approve because it wasn't high enough. Am I not correct? And we brought it up so she wouldn't be bothering council with a smaller number? I thought we had already moved it up.
I think that might be what the clerk is, and I don't know, but as you're talking about that, I think that might be what the clerk is referring to in terms of it's already in the contract and the terms that
I thought it was
that were
10,000
put in
before.
place. No, I was going to say it probably was 25 prior.
25,
So,
okay.
and that wasn't enough as well. So what the clerk is referring to, of course, is the discussion we had was there are things that have been assumed and have been being done in the past. They've been in job descriptions, they've been in job offers, they've been in various projects that as they're being done, that things have been handled. They've not been written down. So the bylaw is to get it written down. So I don't have a problem if we're going to find more detail about this, but I think the intent of this is that we're not tightening up, we're not changing, we're just making sure that from person to person, from CAO to CAO to CAO, from Director of Finance to Director of Finance, from Director of Public Works to Director of Public, like, those things are all written somewhere, so whoever comes in knows fully what it is that they have the authority to do and not do. And more so, the clerk's department knows who it is that they have to go to get a signature for whatever it is. Like, those are the things that have been missing in terms of actually being written in a complete format.
No, I understand.
somewhere.
It's just we need it specific to have all the options. Not only is it it exceeds a number, but it can't go beyond a number. They have to know where their range is,
What the range
that they
is.
are,
Yeah,
that they are
I
allowed to have
understand that.
authority to sign on without approaching council to have something approved.
Councillor Riley.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think what I was just going to, I hear the account, sorry, I don't disagree with them, actually. From last term, my recollection is that this number used to be around 100 to 125,000, and that last term we'd actually reduced it down to 25, and now we've seen the change. I think the difference is here, and I certainly don't disagree with it. The sky's the limit right now. And so that's, I think, the concern, that we know that staff would come to us anyways, but I think just for, due diligence and consistency in how we should always govern, we should have a clear understanding of what that ceiling looks like. So I don't know if maybe the best option at this time, as I think suggested either by yourself or the clerk to, Councillor Rayner, is maybe to refer it back to staff so we can get that clarity. I think that might be the most appropriate.
Unless, so there is nothing that would be held up by us delaying this, so we should be okay. The thing is, some of the bylaws have to be put in place so that we can move forward on certain things, but
Correct.
this is not one of those.
So
I
you're
think
talking about we
that-
can pull this piece out and still approve the rest of it?
Well,
You have to do the whole document, right? Yeah,
that bylaw has to be pulled,
okay.
right. Councillor Chichot.
I agree with Councillor Rayner. This may have just been an oversight. I must admit that I thought about it as well. It's not budgeted, and it's over $50,000. And we did put this in place because sometimes there's exceptional circumstances by which something may have to be done while we are in lame duck situation, and we give it to the CAO. But there has always been very much discussion when we raised it or lowered it to give a cap. So I think we've done this, but not put the cap in place. So whatever we feel comfortable with now, and obviously in the past, we've changed it up and down. So it's not a mark against anybody here. It's a matter of just putting it into perspective so everyone understands the range.
So if we remove 18.3, which is bylaw 2024-84, can we just do that, Mr. Clerk, or do we need to have a resolution to remove it? Okay, so we need a mover, Councillor Rayner, I presume. And a seconder to remove that, Councillor Trombetta. We'll let the clerk catch up with his paper. Yeah, it can be referred back. I think that's what the clerk's working on. But I don't think we want to delay it, so I think if it comes back in January, that shouldn't be a problem. Did you see that? So CAO thinks it's not a problem to come back in January? You think it's not a problem to come back in January? So can we refer it then to the January? So do you want it to come back to the January corporate service? Or the all-committee meeting, or do you want to wait, can it come directly back to council? Do you need a bit more time? Council gives you more time. The other meeting's on the 13th, so let's go to.
I think you just need to. We'll bring it to the 13th?
Why don't you bring it back to council? Let it have an opportunity at committee so that people can have a discussion if it comes directly to council, in case there is any discussion.
So then it would need to come to the all committees meeting on the 13th. But what I was asking was whether they have time to bring it back by then.
We'll get after it.
I normally go to Hawaii.
Okay, so,
Through the mayor to the rest of council, this is the motion I currently have drafted, and this will be moved by Councillor Rayner, and then I believe seconded by Councillor Trombetta.
that's correct.
And this is a referral motion. That bylaw 2024-84 be referred back to staff for the all committees meeting on January 13th, 2025, to provide more information regarding incurring cost in Schedule A. If that's acceptable to Councillor Rayner.
And that's the new terminology for council meeting now, it's starting in January?
No, January is an all committees meeting
Oh, it
because
is?
of Roma,
Okay.
and then it goes, then council. So
Because
we
we
just
have
have,
the new format names coming.
that will start in February.
Okay.
Okay, so if that's acceptable to Councillor Rayner, I'll put it up for a vote. That bylaw 2024-84 be referred back to staff for the all committees meeting on January 13th, 2025, to provide more information regarding incurring cost in Schedule A. Schedule A is what you were referring to there.
Just to put the upper limits on it.
Yeah.
not the lower limits.
Yep. So if that's
Okay.
13th, yes. Okay, so I can
So the
open that
vote,
up to a
you can put it up,
vote.
yeah. Okay, so the vote's in front of you.
Okay, that passed.
Okay.
Okay, so that one.
And so the other one was 18.5, which is 2024-86, a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 2017-70 as amended of the Township of West Lincoln, and it's the Ethan Ling. Okay, so you pulled it, so you're allowed to speak to it, yeah, please?
Well, I don't know, I'm just, maybe you guys are gonna laugh, but this is in bold, so that's why I brought to the attention. We spent a lot of time on this, and yet they've labeled it properly MFG, and I thought that may be a typo error.
Think about it,
Think about it.
Madam Mayor.
That's, like, it's in bold too, and I'm thinking, whoa.
Okay, so it's in bold, as is the other one that has 10 to breaks and Jeremy Brown, so
Well, you know.
that's all. Is there anything
Yep.
particular to that you need, Council?
No, it's just I thought the initialing was kind of
Okay.
inappropriate,
All right,
that's all.
So can we go ahead and vote on?
Sure, you can do that.
Okay, so we're,
You know what that is.
Think about it. All right, vote.
your mic is on, Mike? Thank you. Your joke has caused some work for our clerk, sir.
This one was just separated, we got to move and separate.
Okay, so,
Through the mayor to the rest of,
okay, so we.
through the
need-
mayor to the rest of council, this will be the motion on the
This is
floor,
the
as I
motion.
had to recreate this as the bylaws being put on exactly as it was beforehand. That leave be granted to introduce bylaw 2024-86, and that the same shall be considered to have been read a first, second, third time with one reading and are hereby adopted, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and affix the corporate seal thereto, any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding. And that is moved by Councilor Rayner. I'll need a second.
And Counselor Maychak, will you second that, please? Okay. So the vote should be in front of you. Okay, and that also carries. And so I will adjourn this meeting at 7:48.